Today, we talk about Eagles-Commanders, and here is sort of how I'm seeing this game. And we'll break down, this guy, that guy, offensive line, defensive line, all that kind of stuff. But here, in a macro sense, in a 10,000-foot view sense, I see what we have here is the classic hot team versus the better team. The Eagles, pretty much, according to everybody, are the better team in most aspects of the game. Yep. But the Washington Commanders, no doubt, with their quarterback, are the hotter team.
Yeah.
So going into a game like this, would you rather have the better team or the hotter team?
Yeah, you know what? I thought a lot about this question, and I think it's a good question. I think it's what makes this game Sunday interesting. But if I got to choose between the two, I ultimately want the better team. Right? It doesn't mean the hotter team can't come in and beat you. We've seen that. We've seen that with wild card teams in the past. We can go through the list, but we've seen it. I still would rather, going into the game, want the better team. And here's a big reason why I think it's important Sunday. You're better not just in one or two areas. You're better in just about every aspect of the game. And that's no disrespect to Washington. I think Washington has had a wonderful season. It's amazing to see where they are in the first year of Dan Quinn, the first year of this rookie quarterback with Jaden Daniels. But the Eagles have been, in my opinion, not necessarily played as the most dominant team all year long, but when you think about a well-rounded, there are very few weaknesses.
You said most complete a bunch of times. Most complete team.
The complete team. That's why I believe, like the Eagles, I would much rather have that and be at home. Right? I'm at home in this game with the better team. I would much rather have that, be in that situation, than be the hot team coming in. Because the hot team, at some point, it fizzles out. It does fizzle out. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it does fizzle out at some point. Could this end up as a championship for Washington? Could. I think it's less likely than most scenarios that play out. Doesn't mean it can't happen. I'd rather be in the Eagles situation as the better team, and I'm playing at home.
So I've struggled with this because as soon as it ended up being Washington and we got the home game, which is what we all wanted, yep. I was just like, well, I don't know if I wanted it this way. When I saw them score 45 points in Detroit, even with a banged-up defense, any team scoring 45 points on the road with a rookie quarterback, all of a sudden I'm getting a little shaken up. And I think I might agree with you if this were a 7-game series. Because over a 7-game series, usually the cream, you have a better chance of the cream sort of rising to the top.
Sure.
But here we have this 1-game scenario with the Eagles and the Commanders. And I think I'm fair in saying what we saw last Sunday from the Eagles, even conditions included, we did not see the best out of really any aspect of the Eagles team. Saquon was great, right? The running game was great. But I would say overall, it wasn't the best game for the offense. It wasn't the best game for the defense. And with Jake missing a couple of extra points, it certainly wasn't the greatest game for the special teams. And I think my issue and the reason I keep thinking hotter team as the Commanders are peaking and the Eagles feel like they're not is that like the energy, the last I saw from both teams, what I saw from the Commanders was really, really impressive. And what I saw from the Eagles felt like we got away with one. Like we got through a game by the skin of our teeth against the Rams. And if you ask me, do I want the better team or the team who is playing its best football at the moment, which is really what we're saying about the Commanders, I think I might rather have the hot team. I haven't decided yet who I'm going to pick, who I think is going to win this game. But if you ask me better team or hotter team, I think I'd probably take hotter team.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
You're picking the birds, man.
I don't know if I'm picking the birds.
Oh, my goodness. On this week, on this holiest of weeks?
Would you rather be the better team or the hotter team?
I would rather be the better. In football, I'd rather be the better team. In baseball, I'd rather be the hotter team.
Because we saw this in October.
Yeah, well aware. A cold shiver was sent down my spine when I saw the Commanders. But unlike that Phillies team, which everyone in the city knew was fraudulent, this Eagles team is not that. And I think in football, it's just different. Like, there's not many hot teams that have won Super Bowls. The ones that jump out of the Giants, right? Like, the Giants had those.
They got hot late,
Yep.
There's two fluke runs, and it's going to put
Packers.
Which one?
When Aaron Rodgers won his, they were a wild card team.
Yeah, I feel like the age of the wild card team winning the Super Bowl has kind of died down, and maybe that's because the Chiefs have been there,
right.
And they're all-time great, and the Patriots had their run. But I feel like this get hot and get in thing is better in other sports, not necessarily in football.
Well, it's not better in basketball because it's never the hotter team in basketball. It's usually the best team that wins in basketball.
Listen, if it's going to work, it usually does work in football.
Right, because you only have to win.
I agree with that. You only have to win one game.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But here's where I'll give you a little pushback.
Yep.
I'm not telling you last week versus the Rams was the Eagles' best. That's not what I'm telling you. I also don't believe it was as bad as the perception of it is. I think about that game last week. Am I to say the Eagles' defense somehow is taking a step back? Like, that's sort of what I'm hearing. Oh, the Eagles' defense took a step back last week. Okay, in a game like that with the inclement weather, defense is going to give up a few plays here and there. But here's what I'll tell you. The defense had 5 turnovers in that game against Green Bay, right?
Mm-hmm. Four turnovers, something like that. I think it was 4
turnovers. Yeah, 4 turnovers in that game against Green Bay. They came back and got 2 big turnovers last week.
They did.
So the defense, if
they made plays.
Yes, if we as an offense actually capitalize on the defense's turnovers that they created, that game is out of reach in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Now, you could say, well, that's an indication that we aren't playing our best because we didn't capitalize on them. And to some degree, I agree. But I don't expect Lane Johnson to false start at the 1-yard line, right? I don't expect that to happen. I think in better conditions, 45 degrees, 40 degrees, and sunny, I think the Eagles have no problem turning those 2 turnovers into touchdowns the way they did, the way they should have last week, right? Like the Rams were almost kept in that game last week versus them really ever having control of the game. I never felt the Rams had control of that game last week. It was more or less, will the Eagles pull away and seal the game, which they didn't because they kicked those field goals, which kept the Rams in the game. And we had to hold our breath at the end, but it felt like the Eagles had control of that game last week.
215-592-9494. Would you rather be the better team or the hotter team? And I know we didn't. 2 more quick things. I know we didn't say this is a Tell the Truth Thursday, but my question would be, I think, this is what I would ask you to do as an Eagles fan. If these were 2 teams that were not the Eagles, what would you think? I just want you to internalize that a little bit. That if it were not the Eagles who were the better team, if it was some other team against the Commanders who were the hot team, what would you think? Because I think if you just take a moment and think about it for a second, you may at least explore feeling a little differently. I'll tell you what is interesting. We thought, and you had mentioned this when the NFC North did not win a playoff game. I think going into the playoffs, our thing was Commanders cute story, NFC North teams, they're the real deal. And look, we have the cute story in the NFC Championship game. Yep. We do have a next question today, as we have another pair of tickets to go see Coheed and Cambria, August 27th at Highmark Skyline Stage at the Man. Beautiful place to see a show. Tickets on sale, Ticketmaster.com. Ike, on this day in 1957, Whammo produced the first Frisbee. A good toy. Definitely a good toy, the Frisbee. So for next question today, we're going to say, what was your best toy when you were a kid? 215-592-9494. Jack, did you have a best toy?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Legos.
That's a great toy.
So the problem with Legos now, though, is that now I'm passing them on to walk, right?
So why is that a problem?
It's not a problem. It's just I don't want to step on them because I remember stepping on them as kids.
Not great.
I'm already,
Legos hurt like hell.
Oh, they're the worst. It's probably the worst pain in the world. It's awful.
There's a lot of adult dorks that do Legos. Did you know? It's like a whole thing.
Yeah. Like go outside and touch
because now Legos have become more advanced.
You can't just have Legos. You
can make sculptures now out of Legos.
Unbelievable. So I'll go Legos.
Ike, best toy as a kid?
The number one toy, Big Wheel.
Oh, Big Wheel was.
Got to go with the big wheel,
I mean,
man.
that's a great toy.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, I'm eliminating video games. No Nintendo, no Genesis, no
go
Atari.
outside. Go outside.
All right. Well, you don't have to go outside with these things.
Well, but like with the
Legos,
video games, like,
for sure.
we've gone too far.
For mine, the first thing that popped in my head was Castle Grayskull and my He-Man figures.
Oh, He-Man.
I loved my He-Man action figures.
Love He-Man,
I had a bunch of good action figures, but the He-Man ones, they're a little bigger. There was was it an orange He-Man? There was the evil He-Man. I also had that one, and I had Skeletor's Castle Grayskull or whatever.
Castle Grayskull.
So He-Man, that was my number one toy. All right.
Yeah, Ram Man.
Ram Man? Was that one of the He-Mans?
Was that one of the He-Man? I'm trying to think of the
Rain
other
Man
name.
was with Dustin Hoffman.
No, that's Rain Man.
That's Rain Man. I advise you just to stay out of this. Yeah. You and your toys from the 2000s. Yeah.
I don't think there were any Rain Man action figures with like a little box of toothpicks or whatever.
How would you play with a Rain Man?
Yeah.
Yes.
The blackjack cable with the Rain Man, little Rain Man action figure. All right. 215-592-9494. Would you rather be the better team or the hotter team? And next question today for a pair of Coheed and Cambria tickets. Give us, in honor of the first Frisbee being produced in 1957, give us your best toy when you were a kid.